expressions. And what this expression does is it uses a gradient layer. And I'll show you. Here's my gradient layer. I made two layers. Uh, Bottom one, it's just your regular gradient. I did that by creating a solid, and I gave it a layer style, gradient overlay, and I just went to edit gradient, and I set it up like such. So that's what I did with the layer style. Then I duplicated it and made a linear wipe effect on it. And I made this a much tighter gradient. Let me hide the one below it so you can see what's going on. So I went to edit gradient, and this one, it's got a larger burst of white at the beginning. So let me slide this over a little bit. So we got a nice, right here, like a hot area. Let's move that, and like that. So we've got sort of like a band right there. That's what I did for that. And so I just used my gradients there. This is what's going on, and there's a linear wipe thrown on the top band, like such. Now I put on the look at this, edit that on the linear wipe by clicking on the lock right here. So if I click on that effect, as we mentioned last week, I can edit this effect while in my main composition here. So here's the code right here. It's this part right here in white. And what it basically means is we're creating a sample image. I call it a control layer. And right here, where it says this comp layer, control layer, that's where it's going to be pointing to. And I added some stars. I already pasted the code into it. So what this effect does, watch the scale of the stars as I'm animating the keyframe for the white gradient. You see how the scale of the stars is changing over time. Now this will also happen if I feather this 500. Watch the scale of the stars. See, now we're getting more happening. So if I make this 1500, we'll watch the scale of the stars, see how it changes there. It'll also be if we change the direction of this linear wipe, that'll influence how this works as well. Watch the stars and see how they move. So this gradient and the linear wipe, if I change that, we'll watch it change again. We'll alter also the direction of it. We'll alter how this effect works. So that's what's going on. Like that. No keyframing, it's all the expression. So I'm going to hide the stars. You saw how I'm doing it. I'm doing it with the control layer. And if I hide this, you'll see how the gradient is working. And as I move where it's white, the brightest part, the scale is the biggest. This is how this is working. So as you see, as it gets a little darker, the scale is changing. So let me set this to 0. And I will move this to about here. And you see how that affects it. So in order to get this to work, all I did was I selected my first star and I pick whipped to the control layer. And then I added in all this code, and that's what's creating that effect. And I did that on the scale. So that's where the expression is. And like I said, so you just start with, source layer. It's all written out up here. Stamp to look at. So I make my source layer, space equals, and then I pick whipped to down here and added a semicolon in the rest of the code, which you can copy and paste in. And that's how you get your gradient to affect multiple objects across time without any keyframing. And like I said, the feathering, the direction, and the transition will all have an impact on the size of whatever image you have going across it. So you can control them with a gradient, which is a very useful way of saving time when you've got to do some interesting